my name is Jason JROCK Houston, and you're listening to Riffs Magazine. We can be found on the web at www.guitarist.com. We're speaking with two of the members of the band Images of Eden, which is based out of Phoenix, Arizona. We're speaking with lead singer, rhythm guitarist Gordon Titsworth and drummer Steve Dorssom. Welcome to the show, guys. How you doing?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Now, you know,
thanks a lot, brother.
Well, thanks for joining us today. And you guys are one of the first bands I've interviewed since this whole crazy pandemic thing we're going through. What's it been like? Because I know a lot of times these days, really the way the bands make any money these days is through live shows. So, what's that been like for you guys not being able to play out live right now?
Well, actually, right now it's not hurting us too bad because by design we were in the studio finishing up our record. We were doing some music videos in preparation for the new record release and things like that. The record's all recorded, but you know, we're taking this time to get everything put together. Now, how it is going to hurt us though is our future shows here in the very near future. They're not going to happen, and then also we had some trips that we were gonna do to Europe, and those of course are not going to happen. It's a big bummer. It's not killing us right now because we have some things going on that we need to get ready to go and get to the starting line for when all this kind of settles down. We'll be ready to go. But yeah, it's a crippling factor to the entire entertainment industry.
Yeah. I mean, even movie theaters are shut down, and you know, even the summer movie like Top Gun was supposed to come out, and Top Gun 2 is supposed to come out. I think in June or something like that, and it's been pushed back to December now. And some of the other movies have been taken off the release schedule. So it's just kind of crazy state of the world right now.
Yeah, it sure is.
And now, as far as you said, the new album you guys are getting ready to release. It's already been recorded, it's done and stuff, but do you have a projected release date? Like, even though we're kind of going through this right now, could you see yourself still putting the album out there? That way people could kind of get familiar with the new material?
Well, I don't know if Gordon, and you can probably talk to this too, I don't know if it's actually in our hands right now.
Oh, it's the record company. Record company.
As it stands right now, we're just waiting on the North American distributor to give us the go-ahead because our label can't really schedule any more releases until Sony says, all right, you know, we're taking some more. So right when everything was shutting down, what they told us was they were honoring the current releases, but they weren't scheduling anything else until, you know, the world is back up and running. So as soon as we know what's going on then we can actually schedule the release. And depending on when that release is going to kind of determine what happens next.
And I'm sure people, if they go to any of the websites or Facebook, that'll be all announced as soon as you know. Now, you guys mentioned you're shooting a video for one of the songs, or you already have any. What's the likelihood that'll at least get released, you know, for people to check out in the near future?
Well, we actually we all got together and kind of knocked out two big music videos for the new record. And we did it all in one weekend, and that was like a record of some sort, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But we did Autumn is Burning.
Okay.
As one of them, and we did that, and we actually filmed that recently and just released that, as you know. Okay. We did another one called My Promise for one of our songs off the new record. Now, we will not release that one until we have a release date, and possibly until the release date. But we have that completed and in our back pocket ready to go. And we also have another video, actually, we're making this summer, since while we're down, we're going to do a cover remake, and I won't tell you what it is yet, but we're going to do a cover remake, IOE style, and make a video with it too, to make it kind of interesting. So we'll have plenty of visuals to go along with this new record.
In regards to the cover tune, you're not going to tell us what it is. That's cool, but let me ask you, because oftentimes when bands do covers, you know, a lot of times when bands are like first coming out, I mean, a perfect band that comes to mind is like Quite Right. They covered those Slade songs. Now, there's two trains of thoughts. A lot of times bands will go in there and they'll kind of like put their own spin on the song, and then there's other thought, which is, you know, let's stay as true to the original version as we possibly can. Where do you guys fall with that?
Yeah, we're going to be putting it on our own fingerprint.
Yeah.
That's cool.
For sure.
It's definitely going to be Images of Eden style. And just to add to that too, I mean, we're not doing this cover tune single, so to speak, for the record label or to put it to distribution or download. It's strictly us having fun, putting out a video, making a cover of a song that's really fitting for the time. And it definitely has our MO all over it, and we're doing that just for fun, really. And this is a fan treat. Yeah, that's a cool thing to do. I mean, it's a great way to tip your hat to kind of the bands that came before you. I mean, another band that I just love that has a kind of history of the last couple of years. Every album they release, they put a couple cover tunes as the Dead Daisies, and so I love when bands do that. But see, what's cool about it is like, you guys aren't like doing a whole album of covers. You're still a band that does great original music, and I got to tip my hat to you guys for that, because I know you haven't been around too long, but there's a thought where a lot of bands these days, they're like, we're just going to go out and tour, play live shows. We're not going to bother writing or recording any new music. And so the fact that you guys are all about original music and kind of giving your fans something new, I think that's cool.
Well, appreciate that, man. If I could jump into that, that's one thing that will never stop, man. It's like the floodgates of the original material. It's almost like I got to kind of put a kink in the hose. The stuff keeps coming out too fast. So there's not going to be any shortage of that. I can promise you that. It's just like, just now. I mean, like this week, I'm wrapping up the final recording and the final vocals for the Angel Born album. But already I'm just feeling all this stuff firing in my head about, I can hear arrangements and preliminary things for what's going to come after that. So it's kind of like voices in my head, man, that will never go away, and I don't want them to.
And I always love to ask bands, like, because I know one of the hardest things to do in your former band is coming up with a name, and I gotta say right off the bat, I just love the name of the band, Images of Eden. I can't tell you how original, what an original sounding name that is. Talk a little bit about the story behind coming up with the name and that.
Funny thing, and I have a tendency to get really grossly long-winded, man, so I'm going to try to rein that. I actually started the concept, it was back in like 2000, well, actually 90, going far back. Yeah. I'm going to say the late 90s is when I've been in and out of bands and kind of never really found, the ideal group of people and the ideal situation. So thankfully I learned a lot of the instruments over the years. So it was kind of, I guess, more or less time back in 1999 where a buddy of mine said, okay, you just got out of this band, why don't you do your album? I know you've been wanting to do your album. I'll play drums in the studio and, use that to form the band. And I was like, okay, great. So I had a collection of 12 songs that, believe it or not, the name of I had no band name, but I had an album name. The album name was going to be Images of Eden.
Oh, cool.
Because the nature of all the songs, all the songs had a very specific positive overtone to them, and was kind of depicting sort of a good place in life, because I had just gotten out of a really bad place.
Wow.
And I couldn't think of a band name. And then I was talking to my wife, and I was like, I'm just going to call the album Images of Eden, but I don't have a band name. And she's like, wait a minute.
That's
it. Perfect band name. It's exactly what you stand for. It's exactly what you're about. Yeah, and it's different, just like you said. So I actually have to credit her for that. And it stuck. And the cool thing is, you can take it any different direction. It doesn't box you in.
Yeah, I mean, there are those people that might think it has a religious content, to it, but it is kind of thing I love about Images of Eden. It could kind of be whatever you want to be it to be,
Exactly.
Yeah. And now let me ask you, Gordon. But before this band, I was curious, because I know you have a lead singer, a rhythm guitar player, but I was curious, like before Images of Eden, were you always a singer, or is this one of those things where you were kind of a guitar player in the band and you always wanted to be the frontman and singer?
That's a great question, man. Nobody's ever asked that. So,
and he's got a great answer for you too.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I was actually 15 when I never wanted to sing. I wanted to be a guitar player.
Okay.
Back when I was a kid, man, I heard electric guitar and I heard, crunching, distortion, and leads, and I said, that's it. That's me.
Yeah.
So I was 13 when I picked up a guitar. Then next thing I know, I'm pushing 15, 16. So we got an instrumental band together at the time. We were almost like, think Images at like 30 years prior and 30 years more primitive.
Yeah.
And it was like two guitars, a keyboard player that played bass, and a drummer, and literally we were an instrumental band, and we had so many singers coming in and out that we were trying to audition. Yeah. Nobody could do what we wanted them to do, or had a different style, and I just literally out of frustration and just bitterness decided, let me see if I have any kind of semblance of a voice at all, because I'm really sick of auditioning singers that don't do what we want them to do. And right away out of the gate, I sounded like a circular saw cutting against the blackboard, so I had to work on it a little bit. But I kind of noticed I had a little bit of something, so I took some lessons, and I was like, okay, well, we have to pay one less cook in the kitchen. I'll just sing and play guitar. But as time went on, I realized, it's very difficult trying to kind of divide your attention between vocals and guitar. One of them's going to suffer. So I said, I'm much more valuable as a singer than a guitar player because there are a million guitarists out there. So let me use this as my main focus. But thankfully, I learned these instruments that I can, in the studio, utilize. It's actually saved us from imploding 3 times.
Yeah, and I'll tell you the reason I asked that is I heard a similar thing of it. Dave Mustaine from Megadeth had said in an interview, like when he first formed Megadeth after leaving Metallica, he had wanted to get somebody else to do the lead singing, and he came up against the same problem, which was he could not find a singer that could sing his material the way he wanted it to be seen. And somebody asked him, hey, why don't you give it a shot and just see how you... And he's like, before that, he never knew he could really be a decent lead singer, and that kind of, fell into it that way.
Exactly, and talking about doing both, and a phenomenal guitar player as well. So, he's definitely in the minority there.
And then, I always love bands that have 2 guitar players. So I imagine you being the rhythm player, you got a lead player. So being that you are the front man and you also are a guitar player, talk a little bit about you and the other guitar player kind of playing off each other, or how do you guys, separate the guitar parts?
Yeah, studio's a different animal. I actually play all of the rhythm guitar in the studio, and I play some of the guitar harmonies, some of the slower melodic guitar harmonies. But Victor actually does all of the lead guitar in the studio, and live he plays everything. Live, he's the guy. Now, as far as a second guitarist, that's still something that we're kind of. I don't even know what the word for it is.
We're developing still.
Developing. There you go. Yeah, we're developing that. But as far as like the live shows go, I'm strictly vocals live. There's the one thing I learned with writing Angel Born album and actually writing the Soul Rise album is I kind of backed myself into a corner because the rhythm guitar is challenging enough by itself, and the vocals are definitely challenging enough by themselves, and there's putting the two together, me trying to sing and play rhythm, it's just not something, like I said, is going to suffer. But Victor Morello is a phenomenal guitar player. He's as metal as it gets, so we're just putting it in his more than capable hands, at least for now, until we come up with the
permanent.
We solidify the second guitar.
Yeah, stretch out a little bit, but we got a good handle on it all.
Absolutely.
That's cool because I'd imagine being up on stage. I mean, that's got to take a lot of brain power. I mean, especially as a lead singer, trying to remember all the words to the songs and then trying to remember what guitar chords to hit. I mean.
Well, and plus you got to work the crowd and introduce the songs and take care of everybody. It's a big job.
And
I try. One thing Bruce Dickinson said years ago said, when you're playing, you have to play like you're playing in an arena. And the reason he runs around and does so much live is so the people in the back of the stadium can see the show and not just see somebody standing there. So I learned from that years ago, so I try to put as much energy into the actual performance as possible along with that. So, just another reason why we'll just put it in a good guitar player's hands.
Yeah, so now, Gordon, you mentioned that you started playing guitar at 13. I was curious, who are some of the bands or guitar players or even singers that kind of influenced you to do what you're doing? I guess what I'm asking is, you're in your 13, you start playing the guitar. Did you just kind of pick up a guitar by accident? Somebody, your parents encouraged you to take lessons, or what was your story as far as getting into music?
Yeah, I wanted to play for a while and just hadn't really made it happen. And I wanted to go the whole 9 yards, get the guitar. They immediately set me up with lessons, and so I learned all your basic theory and chords and scales and things like that. Some of my early guitar players that it's a different list now, but for the early ones, I immediately grabbed onto Randy Rhoads. To the dual guitar players in Iron Maiden, Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, all the greats back then. And of course, I was 13 many years ago. We'll leave that alone. But as far as now, like for example, now my style now is more of a lower end, chunky, modern metal sound. I would say if I had to cite guitar players now, I would cite say like Mark Tremonti from Alter Bridge. I love Adam D from Killswitch Engage. Those guys. So some heavier, lower chunking bands.
Great modern players. Now some of the other guys you mentioned, just to go down the list. Let's start with Randy Rhoads. I mean, what's amazing to me about that guy? Okay, Randy Rhoads. There's no argument what a great guitar player is. But if you stop and think about, during this guy's short little life and short career, because you stop and think about, he was briefly in Quite Right before Ozzy, but all he really, as far as music he left behind was those 2 Ozzy albums. And if you think about the fact that the guy dies so young, and he just really is known for those 2 albums, look at the legacy he left. Look at the influence that guy just off of 2 albums, influenced all these people. Even to all these years later.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And but yeah, I mean, definitely an early, early
influence.
As far as some of the vocalists, I mean, the vocalist that got me to actually, that pushed me over the edge and said, all right, now I have to sing, was John Arch from Fate's Warning.
Oh, wow.
Specifically the Awaken the Guardian album. Now, I grew up with, Iron Maiden, Priest, Black Sabbath, all the good classics, Queensryche. But, when I heard Fate's Warning, it was in 1988, I got the No Exit album, then I went back to the Awaken the Guardian. The day that I heard the Awaken the Guardian, literally, no lie, my entire musical world shifted. That was it. I mean, this was like nothing I had ever heard vocally, songwriting-wise. I mean, the walking the line of unpredictability versus something you expect to hear, and it all had an incredibly infectious, positive overtone, and everything about that was what I liked. Now, obviously, you get John Arch, Jeff Tate, Bruce Dickinson, Lance King, who is a little less known but a phenomenal vocalist, and I'll even go to some modern metal vocalists. I mean, I love Howard Jones from Killswitch Engage. Kind of walking the line between harsh and clean, and but still the classics.
How about like Dio? Was he at all an influence on you?
Yeah, Dio was, but weirdly enough, Peter Steele from Typo Negative was a huge influence, from the level of passion that he puts in his songs. I mean, when you listen to his songs, some Typo Negative, you're almost like teary-eyed with every hair standing up in some of their songs. And I said, if I can evoke this, I've won.
Yeah, sadly, Peter Steele died way too young. But that's one of those bands that I always thought very underrated. I always thought that's one band. People had love for Typo Negative, but I always thought they should have been much bigger than what they were.
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely.
And now you mentioned.
But so that's a pretty heavy, well-rounded, I guess, influence. So we throw all that in, just add water and stir.
Now, you're talking a little bit about Iron Maiden too, and I tell you, like Priest, that's one of my all-time favorite metal bands of all time. But I'll tell you, I got to ask your opinion as a musician, there, Gordon, because I always loved Maiden, but I think since they added, the 3rd guitar player, man, 3 guitars. I mean, they're one of the very few bands that even do that. But it just made to me the sound a lot fatter,
I will tell you this, Maiden is probably the longest band that I've always listened to, that I still listen to. And, and they're still kicking it harder than ever. I mean, they are like they've set the bar for metal. Simple as that.
Yeah, and now Steve, let's talk a little bit about your influences. Now, You're a drummer, obviously. Now, so how old were you when you first started playing the drums?
I was about 13, 14 when I started up.
And who are some of the guys that influenced you? You know, your drum heroes.
Oh, you know, some of these might shock you, some may not.
That's
but
cool.
Tommy Aldridge.
Oh wow, yeah.
You know, was a big one. Yeah. You know, back in the day. Of course, Alex Van Halen. I followed him a lot. Just a really unorthodox type of drummer that just incredible passion. You know. Let's see, who else? Scott Rockenfield was a huge influence on me back in the day. Yeah. Those are a few to... Frankie Benali was a huge influence on me on the very beginning when I was trying to play a Sparkle Blue JCPenney drum set in my parents' garage and dreamed about being in a band, you know.
Wow, yeah.
So, that's to name a few.
And, you know, Scott Rockenfield, the interesting thing about him, you know, is he's no longer, like, officially with Queensryche, and I don't even know who the guy is they got to replace him. But, you know, interestingly enough, I mean, when people think of, you know, Queensryche, there's probably a lot of people don't even know he's out of the band, but I mean, that's how great of a player he is. That's how big he is. That, you know.
Yeah, the drummers sometimes have to take a back seat unless you really make yourself known, and people just don't, you know. So, like for his example, he stepped out just to have his child, you know, with his wife. You know, I don't think he's ever had a kid before, you know. So he's been on the road, you know, his whole life pretty much. Yeah. You know what I mean?
He got even the right to do that, you know. But now you bring up an interesting point, because that is so true with drummers. That you got drummers, let's say like Carmine Appice, very physical, very flashy players, and I actually had the honor of interviewing Carmine once, and he was kind of sharing me that his whole thought process with the drums is, he goes, you know, most time the drummer's in the back of the stage. I want to be the guy everybody's paying attention. I want to play so hard that like the drums are in the front of the stage, if you know what I mean. That everybody's got their eyes on me, and then there are guys that kind of just sit there and keep time. What's your attitude as far as your drumming style? Do you like to get?
That's pretty much my mentality, you know. Yeah. I came from the '80s, you know. Yeah. So the flashy drummers, you know, the really, you know, I don't flash out and glam out. What I do, how I interpret that in my playing, every note has a purpose that I play, and I put every ounce of passion into every note that I play. And when someone sees you do that, it sticks out, you know. So I'm not a drumstick twirler, and I'm not going to go get fancy, flashy. What I will do is I'll put that song in my heart, and I'm going to give it everything I got on every single note, and you're going to know it.
And so
let me add to that. Yeah. I have to say this. When Steve was tracking the song Soul Rise, the title track of our last album, he broke a stick against the grain. Wow. How the hell do you break a stick against the grain when you're in a studio and you're not even in the live setting? I mean, that right there, that takes something. That's all I'll say.
Some power.
That's just proof right there.
Yeah. So I'm a different kind of drummer in my own way, you know, and I don't try to follow anybody or be like anybody. I try to take a lot of my influences and learn from a lot of people, sure, but I'll take all that and I'll put it out through me.
That's
you know, and that's what makes any individual musician. You know, you collect your influences and you put the input of the influence and the output is you. Yeah. You know, and you make every single note count. And when you do that and you don't take one note off, you're a professional. You know, and that's how you do it.
And you know, I gotta put this out there. Just talking to you guys today, I can see that, you know, a lot of times when I interview a band, there's typically one or two guys that kind of run the band, and or one guy that does all the interviews. And I think it's cool when you have more than one guy kind of take part in the interview or whatever like that, and you don't have one guy kind of dictating or kind of telling everyone what to say. You guys really seem to have a great chemistry, or, you know, great, at least just as bandmates and friends, you know.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, and it's kind of a point I'd like to hit on just for a second. I mean, in our band, we have a great group of men, okay? We have all been there, done that, paid our dues, you know, went through the ups and downs, and we were lucky enough late in our life to all find each other and finish some unfinished business, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So, you know, we have a glass table in our band. Everything's open. There's nothing hidden. You know, like I said, we have a really good group of men. You know, Gordon and I lead the ship because that's what we're good at, and that's what we do. You know, and the guys love that. You know, they trust us. You know, we tell them everything. Like I said, we live on a glass table, so everything's transparent and there's nothing hidden. But we all do everything for the band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So everything we do is for the best of the band, and there's some hard decisions we have to make sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just part of, you know, making it the best it can be. You know, so Gordon and I kind of run it, and you know, we both have our things that we're good at, and so we handle those, and we kind of split it up. So with that being said, we're, instead of one person trying to handle everything and do it all and trying to keep up, now we got two people, and now we're a freaking tidal wave to deal with.
Steve, are you an original member as well, or have you been with the band just?
No, I'm not an original member. I've been in the band since 2015, Gordon.
Yeah, I will tell you this. There have been several incarnations, I guess, over the years.
Okay.
And believe it or not, I feel like, you know, David St. Hubbins from Spinal Tap saying this, but there have been 20 people in this band over the years. And the reason there's been 20 people in the band is because it is so hard to find people who are on the same page musically, direction-wise, that share the same vision. And we have a very unique approach and vision and formula. I mean, it's different than a lot of what's out there. So it's fine tuned. And I mean, of course, we ran into all the issues. You know, drug and or alcohol issues that you know prevented somebody from going on very far.
Wow.
Just people trying to take over when you're like, okay, this is the formula that we use. This is what we're doing. And, you know, there are people that want to just come in and change everything.
It's kind of like, hey, I've been here since day one. You just getting here, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And just, you know, butting heads, unreliable. So, you know, we've gotten the gamut across the board, but, you know, that's just kind of how it's been. So, luckily, you know, when you're talking about, I've seen, unfortunately, a lot of bands over the years, just either locally, nationally, whatever, of where there's an equal say in everything. What I've found is, more often than not, bands that have a, you know, an equal, you know, let's say there are 5 members, everybody's got a 20% vote, let's just say. Those bands implode and don't go very far.
Nothing gets done.
Something, either nothing gets done, or they can't agree on something, and the band implodes. So, I mean, I've had to reform Images. Well, they had the original formation for the first incarnation, and basically almost had to start from scratch 2 more times, and literally start from, you know, from scratch. The only one that has, the longest member is Dean Harris on keyboards, who's been here since the Rebuilding the Ruins album, which was 2011. After that, we essentially, you know, I guess the best thing I could say is reform, rebranded, and kind of, you know, that's the Images that you're seeing now.
Yeah, so as soon as Gordon and I got together in about 2014, late 2014, he asked me to come on board to Images of Eden and start working this with him, and I agreed, and then we started rebranding, and we were very smart. We've been down the road. We knew what to do now. Let's build it correctly and do this correctly this time, and that's what we did. We rebranded, we rebuilt, you know, we put the new songs out, the new video style that we do, everything that we do in-house, and we put it out, got a record deal, and, you know, here we are now. So
let me ask you, Gordon, so as far as getting Steve in a band, had you known him previously? Had somebody recommended him to you? You've seen him play in another band before?
This is great. Yeah, in 2013, I actually got an email from Victor Morell, who is our guitar player now. Victor, at the time, was in a band with Steve called Born of Fire out of Phoenix, and they, just had their album kind of, I guess, re-released, and we're looking to do a follow-up album. And issues with the singer, whole different story.
Okay.
They were looking to bring another singer in to do the album, and as soon as I heard them, I was like, man, these guys are awesome.
Wow.
So we made that happen, and I actually, they pulled me in to do the Born of Fire album, which we actually did. The album was called Dead Winter Sun.
Yeah.
It was released in 2014. So went in there, did vocals kind of from afar, because I live in Pennsylvania, they live in Phoenix.
Wow.
And they just sent me the tracks. I did the vocals, and after it was done, flew out, shot a couple videos, and the record label that was going to release the album dropped it, and I told Steve at the time, because he was running Born of Fire, and I was like, wow, this sounds familiar. This is what I do with Images of Eden. And so we started talking. I was like, look, I've been down this road. I'll be glad to offer everything I've got to help release this album. So Steve and I literally joined up right then and there to say, let's do this Born of Fire album. And what we realized immediately was we worked like perfectly together. I mean, it was like we were on the same page when it came to everything, whether it was musical direction, visual direction, PR, the whole 9 yards. And as soon as that album was released, I was at the time, during that time, was writing for Soul Rise, and I said, I need a drummer for Images, and there's only one guy that I want to do this. So I pitched it to Steve, and your plate was like full and then some. And I know at first you're like, oh man, all this stuff I got to do. And then, but when I sent them the material, it was like that was it. It was done.
Yeah, Gordon sent me kind of a demo of what he had in mind for the new Images album, and of course, really didn't have a band together for it. And I was kind of heading up Born of Fire, so we definitely knew how to run things together.
Wow.
So, and as Gordon alluded to, we got together very quickly with Born of Fire, went and shopped a record deal and nailed one, and put it out. So we knew we could work good together. So when I listened to some of his demo tracks to invite me on to play drums, I literally, over a small period of time, I mean, this stuff it put me in tears, I mean, it really touched me to where it moved me so much where I called Gordon back. I said, I'm in. And I said, not just that I'm in. When I say I'm in, that means all my cards are in. I'm letting my other baby go, and I'm coming over to you. So I let Born of Fire go to come over to Images, and so, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to rebuild, we're going to rebrand, and we're going to do it. And that's what we're doing right now. That's
hardcore dedication. I mean, I could see from your point of view, Gordon, how this is a new guy, or a guy that's doing the drum parts, and he's so into it, and he's so invested in all his time and everything. You're like, guys, this guy is just kind of joining up. He's getting involved, and he's all into it. I could see why you want somebody like that in your band.
But to add to that too, it was kind of weird because I had, going back to my earlier comment, 20 people in this band over the years. There were many members that had been in the band before Steve joined.
Yeah.
And I was always like, I had a massive padlock on everything. It was kind of like I held everything so close because one of our first early members tried to take control of everything.
Wow.
And it was very manipulative.
Yeah.
And as soon as I realized what was happening, I was like, wait a minute, now he's running the website, he's got the money, he's booking the gigs,
Yeah.
So I put the brakes on all that, and I literally was almost like psychotically guarding everything. And with so many people coming in, everybody kind of wanted a piece of it. Well, don't share the responsibilities, and I was like, no, because as soon as I do that, things fall apart.
Yeah.
And so I was like, really never really looking to give it up.
Yeah.
But the way we worked together, it was like, it was no problem. I mean, we're like
this guy proved
it was easy. It was a no-brainer. As soon as I brought him in, I was like, look, we're partners on this, brother. That's it. I never gave up a friggin' grain of rice for this before, but now I'm like, it's it, man.
And this stuff was held close to Gordon's heart. This is, like you said, this was a serious deal in our lives. This music that it was given to him. That was a whole other story on how all that came together, and it's very special. But we had to gain each other's trust. We were both heads of our own deals, and we were very, very, careful in that manner. But we earned each other's trust. Gordon, you handle this. Steve, you handle this. And we do it with flying colors. Don't have to remind each other. I mean, we build, and it proved to each other like, wow. It's like I'm looking at me in the mirror, and he's looking at him in the mirror, and it's like, wow, this is great. I've never had a partner who's just like me, and vice versa, that we can do this. It's like it turns in from a small little splash to a freaking tidal wave now. This is great because business. Let's face it. I mean, it's a big part of the music industry. I mean, you've got to know your business side of it, or you're going to sit there and spin your wheels in the mud. I mean, it's just true, you know. So we're very good at both ends of it. So this is what works great. And then beyond that, you know, when him and I collaborate for music videos, we're just like mashed potatoes and gravy again, you know. So it's awesome.
And you know, talking about the other guys, like you've got, you know, Eric Mulvane, Dean Harris, and Victor Morell. We couldn't possibly find more phenomenal musicians in every way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like there's normally that, you know, we've all been in bands. I mean, how many bands have we been in over the years, you know, individually, any of us? There's always that one clown in the band.
Yeah.
Or that one clown's wife, you know. But here, man, it's like everybody in the mix is so stellar, and that never happens.
Yeah, that's an important piece to all this. Is like, yeah, we can sit here and talk about how good of a relationship Gordon and I have on business and doing it all, but without our guys, we don't have nothing.
That's my point. It's the band as a whole. I mean, you know, and I love to hear you guys saying that. It's not just that we do everything and it's all about us. It's about the rest of the guys in the band. Because truthfully, any band, you take just even just the drummer or the guitar player out, you replace them with anybody else, that one element is going to change the sound of a band, you know, because they're going to bring in a different influence to what the previous guy had. You know, and it's kind of interesting you guys talking about the chemistry and how well everybody, you know, gets along. I mean, take a band like, this is my opinion now, but take a band like Rat. I always loved that band. They had great songs, they had great hooks, you know, but you know, their band that they splintered off into, a couple of years ago, they splintered off into 2 different versions. The drummer tried to go out, the drummer who wasn't a writer, didn't write any of his songs. He was trying to go out and play these other songs written by the other guys, and he thought he was going to be able to do it. He was taken to court, he was stopped, and then LA Guns, another one of my favorite bands, they 2 of the members don't get along anymore.
It doesn't work.
They got their own.
It doesn't work. Great White, the same thing happened to them.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And I bring up LA Guns only because it's the same type of situation. Now, you said you've had over 20 members. I was reading on their website because now they got the 2 different versions. They probably, LA Guns, in the history of the band, they've had probably over like 50 members, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, in that case, you got to have a leader that's holding the ground somewhere. I think it's just a cluster, but
I mean, that's one thing people often ask, and Steve, we've done enough interviews with us. Say, are there any advice you would give to anybody? You know, and Jason, perfect timing, because the advice that I would say is learn all of the instruments if you can, and try not to, you know, if you're in a situation where there's equal say, that can be a little, you know, have a safety net, because. Whenever we had somebody leave the band or had to get fired or quit or something like that, and if we were ever in the studio, I could, like if we didn't have a bass player, I would play bass on that album. Or if there was something missing, I could fill in that piece. Whereas if you're not able to do that, you either have to recruit somebody, pay somebody, or worse. And you know, after the second album, Sunlight of the Spirit, I found myself literally with no band when I was writing the third album, Rebuilding the Ruins. So I, you know, had to pretty much say, okay, well, I did this for the first album. I got a session drummer and played all the other instruments, so I guess I'll just have to do it again. So that's what I had to do for Rebuilding the Ruins. But, you know, again, we would have literally broken up on 3 different occasions.
And I remember, Gordon, part of the reason for that is, like you've been kind of saying throughout the whole interview, you know, I've been playing guitar in that. I started when I was 13. That's kind of what my dream is, which is I could imagine by the time, you know, you get that first record deal, you don't want anything getting in your way. Well, you know what, if I have to play the bass parts on the album, whatever the case may be, anything to get that record made, anything to get my music out there. You know, I'm living the dream now, so to speak.
Funny you should say that, because the first time we played live, we were missing, literally our bass player quit and keyboard player quit, so the drummer at the time was like, dude, you know how to play bass. You know, there's not a lot of keyboards. Throw a keyboard in front of you, hit a couple of key parts, but sing and play bass. And I was like, that's not really what I wanted to do, but if we want to get out there, sure. So, I mean, we actually almost did the Rush thing. I sang lead, I had bass, I had the keyboard in front of me until we could, you know, fill the slots. So it's kind of like filling the puzzle pieces until you can get the permanent.
And the advice that I could give to anybody, you know, just to kind of maybe teeter off Gordon here is, you know, it's like you're building a team. I mean, pick the right character. Pick the right character people. You know, and that's the important thing. And pick the right character people to bring in that you like, and you see eye to eye with, and you'll see things go a lot easier. And don't forget, you're supposed to have fun. Okay, this is not supposed to be a dramatic, movie job with a lot of dramatics going on all the time. No, man, it's supposed to be fun. You're playing music out of your heart to make yourself and other people feel good. Find the people that you're compatible with. Find good character people that fit what you're doing, and start from there. I
mean, just talking to you guys, I mean, it sounds like, there's a one mindset that, you could be playing with a group of guys that you can't stand being with. Oh, man, I got to see that jerk today, or, I'm going to be in the studio with him. As opposed to doing your way, it's not like a job. It's like I get to hang out with my friends. We get to create music and do what we like to do,
That's the way it needs to be, right there.
And then I got to ask you, Gordon, now, how would you describe overall, like somebody that's maybe just kind of getting into the band or never really heard the band before, how would you describe overall sound of your band? We'd say you're alternative, we'd say you're metal, hard rock. How would you describe it?
It's weird. I had read a review several years back on an older album, and they said if there's one band that defies classification, it's Images of Eden. And I always liked that quote because we're a mix of a lot of things. If I had to describe somebody to like a metal fan or a hard rock fan that never heard of us, I would say if you were to take a modern sound, like the heavier, low-end, down-tuned guitar, modern production, so think of like a modern hard rock or a modern metal production, but add classic metal elements, like my voice, I'm very influenced by, Iron Maiden, Queensryche, Fate's Warning, so you're going to hear a clean vocalist with power and range, but I do mix it up and do some more modern harsh stuff. And the funny thing is, as low-end and heavy and chunky and high energy and ballsy, for lack of a better word, the music is, there is a very positive and uplifting overtone on top of it. So even though you might hear us going at 1,000,000 miles an hour 1 minute and me, wailing out something with some grit, there's a positive message lyrically, and just even just kind of like the positive feel. Think of if you could take a very heavy sound and arrange that heaviness so that there is sort of an uplifting brightness mixed in. It's almost contradictory. But
that's why I ask you, because the thing I will kind of agree with that you kind of just said is definitely elements of metal and that, and maybe even I could say progressive rock and stuff like that, but that's the thing, you can't like really pigeonhole you guys. I mean, you're a little bit of everything, and that's the best compliment I give you guys is a lot of times when you're hearing a band for the first time or getting into their music, it's like, okay, these guys remind me of Metallica, Black Sabbath, whatever the case may be, but you guys really got a great original sound. I can't really like pigeonhole and say, oh, they sound like a Metallica, they sound like a Megadeth or whatever. You got your own sound, and I think that's really a great thing for a band.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing to do. If you can come up with an original sound that is authentic, that is genuine. So for the listener to feel the emotion of the songwriter, if you can incorporate all those elements, then you are where you want to be. And man, it took a long time, but
the thing is, he didn't consciously, build it that way. He did the song that came out.
It's kind of what came out.
What came out.
And see, I dig that too as a fan, because for the listener, it makes it not so boring. Where, like, I mean, for example, you put on a Black Sabbath song, or even Alice in Chains, or let's say Kiss. You can tell it's like a Kiss song. They have a familiar sound. A lot of times bands don't like to go outside their box, so to speak. And that's the cool thing about a band like Images of Eden. There necessarily isn't a box. You kind of, that's the way I wrote the tune. That's how it came out. That's the way we recorded it. It is.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. That's cool to hear that.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that, because it's funny when people, we talk to some fans and even friends who are fans. They say, can't wait for Angel Born. How does this compare to Soul Rise? I'm like, well, it's hard to say, because there's definitely an evolution.
Yeah.
But when you say, kind of outside the box, if anyone has the chance, it goes back to listen to the first Images of Eden album. One thing they'll notice is every song is literally night and day from the next. and it's like almost like different styles and different everything. And I mean, like one song starts off with a piano and string, next song is double bass, heavy guitar, next song is acoustic guitar, and then kicks in. So it's different every time. And Angel Born is very much like that first album in that every song is very unique from the next one, even more so than Soul Rise.
Yeah, because I've heard bands talk about going in the studio and maybe a guy who doesn't typically write a song or something brings something in and everybody's really digging it, but they're like, that's not what we're known for. No, we don't do ballads or stuff like that. And then just because that's not what we're known for, we're not going to even dare go there. I mean, a perfect example of that is like I mentioned Kiss. One of the biggest songs they had, hit songs they ever had, was the song Beth. And at the time, the guys were like, that run the band, Gene and Paul, they're like, Kiss doesn't do ballads. And then eventually, they have more than that. They did Forever, had another big hit with that in the 90s. But, point being, that's not what we're known for, and it ended up being one of the band's biggest hits ever,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to kind of, you have to look at what you're being given and just pay attention.
And as you guys can see, I could babble on all day with you. I like to talk too, but I was curious, as far as the history of the band, how many albums have you released to date, and are they all currently available? Like, people, if they want to go check out the previous albums, can they go out and get them?
Yeah, a little bit different. The first three albums were sort of in our earlier era, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
The first album, which was sort of a self-titled one, but after the second album, we started referring to it as Chapter 1 because there's Chapter 1, 2001 is when that came out. 2006 was Sunlight of the Spirit. 2011 was Rebuilding the Ruins. Now, those three albums were pretty far apart because more or less I was running everything, funding everything, and it was just hard, man, when you're kind of doing it yourself. We were on Nightmare Records, which was a progressive power metal label run by Lance King.
Okay.
Great guy, great
singer.
Yeah, you're probably familiar with them. Sunlight of the Spirit and Rebuilding the Ruins were available on Nightmare. So I don't know if Lance still has them, but you can always find them on our site. You can find them pretty much anywhere. Amazon.
So on that note, Gordon, do you own all the rights to that music? Oh, okay, cool. Because my next question would be, I know you're a Pavement now, and they're another great label, but any chance any of the earlier material might be re-released on their label, or has there been any talk of that?
Hasn't really been any talk of that. That's a good question. Never really kind of looked back. I think we've had the pedal slammed so hard to the floor on new material, we haven't even thought about re-releasing it. And as far as that goes, I don't really have any plans as of yet because all of the older material you can still get it, no problem.
Yeah.
Just go to our website. But if there were to be, let's just say, demand for the old material, I would cross that bridge.
I guess from my perspective, the reason I was asking is because, like I said, you're Pavement, and I think this is the second album you're releasing on that label that you're getting ready to put out, and so there's a certain level of fans that may think those are the only two albums you guys put out, whereas a lot of people might not know those previous three albums even existed.
And I made a point to make that clear on the website because I don't want to be like Pantera.
Yeah.
I mean, Pantera had 4 albums before Cowboys from Hell.
Yeah.
Most people don't know that, and one of them actually had Phil on it, power metal. But you're absolutely right. Even though we rebranded and relaunched with, the difference between a Dodge Dart and a Ferrari, I guess. I don't even want to. That's a stupid analogy, but I think we just really fine-tuned our sound and reformed and upgraded, and we refocused. So I would say what we're doing now, I would definitely put above the older material, but I love the older material because it is a snapshot in time. It is the history of the band, and I do want to make that known because there is definitely some good old material. Is that what we're focusing on now? Nah, but it's there, and if somebody wants it, they can find it, and it's easy to find. It's not like Pantera trying to hide their old material.
And just to take it a step further, as far as like when you guys do play out live and have to come up with a set list, do you pretty much have the same set list? You mix it up. What's the process like? How much of the newer stuff versus the earlier stuff do you put into the set?
All of our live material now is just Angel Born and Soul Rise.
Oh, okay, cool. And then
just because we rebranded and got all of our musicians and all the right guys in, and we just to stay current and try to push what we had right then. Especially going on tour last spring. Yeah. We just wanted to kind of push what we had currently.
And the last thing I kind of want to touch base on, as far as the record label, which you guys are now with Pavement Entertainment, I think the thing I love about them, and it's interesting that the previous record label, even Nightmare Records that you said you were on, both labels, what I dig about it is it's not just a guy in a suit. The labels are owned by guys that have actually lived a life. They're musicians. Like Pavement, I know, is owned by Tim King, the bass player from Soil, and I think it's great because you would think a guy like that would have nothing but metal on his act. They've got rap acts. They've even got like a 90s pop band Candlebox. There's a little something on that label for everybody, and I kind of dig that,
Yeah, absolutely. And Tim and Mark from Pavement have been phenomenal, man. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I give the back to Lance King. These guys are great to work with. Lance was phenomenal to work with. But yeah, once we got on board with Pavement, it was kind of like, they helped slingshot. They helped, you know what I'm saying, man.
Yeah.
Keep going.
But as far as
you just watch me stumble a little. They kind of like shot us to the next level. And
as far as your current record deal, did they contact you?
You kind of need to be a metalhead, a musician in the metal world to understand the ins and outs of what goes on. You can't be a suit sitting behind a...
Yeah, it's a different business world today. It's different, and it just is.
And on that note, I was curious, the current deal with Pavement, did you guys approach them? Like, did you send them a package, like with a demo tape, or did they find out about the band and approach you guys?
Well, our Bill Matoyer did our record for us, Soul Rise, and he helped us shop our record because Gordon and I put the record together with the guys and proceeded just to complete it and have everything ready to go, and we were going to shop a deal off of that.
Wow.
And so that's what we did. So we solicited a lot of record labels and talked to many, but Bill also talked to the guys at Pavement for us, and pretty much alerted them to us, and they checked it out, and they liked it, and we started talking, and kind of took it from there. But, Bill was kind of instrumental in helping us get our record deal, just because of the fact, when Bill talks, people listen.
Yeah. Well, that's
and
good.
it's not like just us coming from the street with a package. Here, listen to my demo, which they get hundreds and thousands of and whatnot. So, Bill took it up to the top. Say, hey, these guys, they just did their record. Check it out. So that's pretty much how we got the attention we got off the top. So that was great, and they liked it, and then we kind of started working with them from there.
Well, like Judas Priest once said in the song, you obviously delivered the goods. I mean, if you didn't have, the band had nothing to offer, there wouldn't be any labels even offering you anything. A lot of bands these days...
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, when it comes down to it, you got to be good. You got to have your product. You got to have your music video, and you have a good record. But you got to have just that. You got to have some good songs.
Well,
you got to have some good songs. And in today's world, you're measured by numbers and sales. And with being fairly new with the rebranding, it was a tough getting the hookup again. Just because of how they label you and how they judge you. So with that being said, we got in and was able to work it, and they saw the potential in us and what we can do and what our plan was and what our heart was, and they understood and they bought into it, and now we're working together, and as well as Gordon and I work together. Gordon and I have that same record relationship with our record label, so we really work well together, and we get a lot done that way.
I'm glad to hear that. Now, guys, it's been a great pleasure talking to you doing this, and I just want to say before we wrap it up, when I get done talking to you guys on the phone, I'll hit you up on Facebook. I'll send you a private message, and I just want to give you some of my contact info so you have it. And
sure.
I wanted to be sure to put the offer out there. You mentioned you're in some other bands, so anytime down the line, if you'd want to promote those other bands, we could set something up to do an interview about that. And let's stay in touch, because once the album does drop, I'd like to kind of I get a chance to hear of a new album like everybody else. Like to do another follow-up interview, kind of really help push that once it comes out.
For sure, yeah. Absolutely. Two things on that. Yeah, I know Pavement will definitely get a hold of you when it comes out, so we will definitely make sure we do. And as far as the other band thing, I just kind of will throw that out there. Not really currently in anything else. I used to do a vocal for hire thing where I would just, track vocals, and that's kind of where Steve and Victor found me for Born of Fire. The only reason I ever really did vocals for hire and recording studio work was to literally get to the point to where I could build all of our contacts for images. And once we got to the point where we had everything we needed, we made them quit. There was no reason to do it anymore. It was kind of moot, you know. And,
well, you're living, as we said, you're living the dream. I mean, this is what you always want to do, and you're living it. So, success means different things to different people. But I mean, you may not be in top #1 band, but hey, you're getting your music out there. You got a record label. That's more than some people can say. So, I gotta tip my hat to you guys. So, keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, brother. Appreciate it, man.
Okay, I'll be in touch. Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Take care. Thanks.